Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 75th. That's right, the 75th episode right here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast. I am Christy Winters-Scott, joined by my girl, Jamie Steyer Johnson. Welcome back. Great to be partnered up with you again here.
Yes, it's always a good way to start a day, start a week with her hoop stats, and not just her hoop stats, but with you. I felt like we had been chatting all weekend because I was listening to your calls on the Mystics games and definitely had some exciting ones, maybe a little bit of heartbreak in there, but uh, one of my favorite duos to listen to by far, you and Megan McPeak, and of course my former classmate, Meg McDonald.
I know. How about that? Iowa State babies. I love
Mhm.
it. The Cyclones and the football team won this weekend, so you've had like a really great Iowa State kind of weekend too.
Yes, 100%.
Lines it up. I love it. So listen, the playoffs are upon us, and I know that if you look at the standings, Jamie, it's kind of mind-boggling with the logjam between I was going to say 6 and 9, but it's kind of 6 and 10 in that area.
Yeah.
Can you kind of break that down for us and give us some clarity on not only where things stand right now, but what precipitated that in terms of all the games that have transpired over the last couple of days here?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. I can't think of another time where the race has been this tight for this many spots. As we all know, the race for home court advantage is really tight as well, especially with the push that the Aces have put on, with the struggles the Liberty have faced. But maybe more consequentially, to even get into the playoffs is not a guaranteed proposition for some teams that kind of seemed like it was locked up pretty well. And really the biggest team to me that seemed like early in the season for a good chunk of the season, they were safe there and has fallen a little bit is the Seattle Storm. Sitting at 20 and 18. They're still in that 6th seed right now, but they're very much in that mass of, as you said, 6 through 10. And so really the win this weekend over Washington was hugely consequential. It got them to 20 wins on the season, which means that their floor is 20 and 24. So they have the highest floor of any of the teams that are in that section there. And then they're right there with there's 4 teams that have the same ceiling, which is again crazy. They're all neck and neck. So Indiana, LA, Seattle, and Golden State all could go 26 and 18. They can't all go 26 and 18 because there's games in there between each other. But they have all put themselves in a position where they are still very much fighting for a playoff spot. The unfortunate thing is, not everyone can make the playoffs and not everyone can stay in that race. And so for Washington, they're not out of the playoff race, but it's an uphill battle. They're at 16 and 22. Their ceiling is 22 and 22. The floor would be 16 and 28. So lowest ceiling, lowest floor of any of the teams left. But frankly,
Right.
I'll tell you what I've been saying all season. I stand by, and honestly, could be even more so if they miss the playoffs. I maintain they are the best positioned team for the coming years because of their youth, because of what they have to develop. And if they miss the playoffs, guess what? That means that raises your draft pick. And so they are just fine as far as that goes. But it would be an incredible story to see them make the playoffs. But that's definitely not the be all end all for their long term,
Right.
I think, aspirations. But it does seem a little bit more like it could be getting closer to a 4-team race, especially considering Washington's about to go on a 3-game road stretch at New York, at Golden State, at LA. So that's going to be pretty tough for them, but still right in there. I think that these other 4 teams are probably going to be jostling for those 3 remaining spots, and it's going to get very heated. There's a lot of kind of inner competition. There's a lot of kind of funky things with the scheduling. Golden State has 5 straight home games. You have LA that still has 9 games left as opposed to most of the others have 6 or 7. So It's crazy. I mean, by this time next week, we'll have more clarity, but it's wild right now. Like, I keep waiting for someone to separate themselves, but no one does.
No, it's crazy, but you kind of said it. You alluded to the fact that the Las Vegas Aces have won 10 games in a row, right? I think their franchise record is 11 consecutive games, so they're right on the precipice of that. But then you're looking at New York, who has hit a bit of a slide here and dropped from 2 to 5 in the power polls just like that. And then speaking of Las Vegas, they went from 8 to 3, and it's just the sliding scale of that is insane, and that only took about a week, for
Yeah.
that to happen. So with those teams in particular, let's start with New York,
Mhm.
with their games that they have coming up, because you said it, Washington, they'll face them in New York, and what do you think that game will look like? And if New York can get that win, how will that help them? And same thing goes for Washington. If they can get that dub on the road and get some dubs in the chat, what would that look like for them moving forward to that back-to-back weekend again on the West Coast with the Valkyries and the Sparks?
Yeah. I mean, for New York, certainly they're in a fairly precipitous position as far as the playoff race because, as you said, they're down to the fifth seed. They've lost their home court advantage for the first round, which is not something I think anyone anticipated, regardless of the amount of injuries you're dealing with. The roster that New York put together seemed like it could weather nearly any storm. Now, I don't know that anyone could really anticipate how long these injury reports were going to get down the stretch for a lot of these teams. And I've ranted about that a little bit as far as like scheduling and stuff goes. So I won't get into all of that, but I do think that there's a lot of things that could be done better to make that less of an issue going forward, and that needs to
Yep.
be a priority. So putting that aside, for New York, they have a extremely consequential homestand coming up where they play Connecticut today that we're recording Monday, and then they have Washington on the 28th, so Thursday.
Mhm.
These are two games that, based on standings, in theory, New York should win. They're going to be favored in more than likely, but that's not a guarantee at all, especially the way we've seen New York play recently. They have lost to Connecticut earlier this month. They've just lost back to back games to Chicago and Atlanta. We know that this Washington team is capable of beating literally anyone in the league. And so, not knowing exactly what the health may look like for this team. I mean, we know that Tosh Cloud has joined the injury report. We know that you've got the entire list after that where Sabrina's been out. Brianna Stewart now is questionable. So at least that's
I know.
something. It's something.
Right.
And I think that that would be one of, if not the most consequential thing that could happen for them on that injury report is if you get Brianna Stewart back, she elevates everyone else so significantly. She's one of the most difficult to guard players in the league. And so she gets you a little bit of that edge, a little bit of that margin for error back.
Right.
All of that to say, you're sitting at 22 and 15. They're 8 games back. There's a little bit of a gap still between that top 5 and then the next 5,
Right.
where New York's 8 games back, Seattle's 10.5 games back. They would have to really continue a pretty significant skid to drop below 5.
Right.
But you would have to really put games together to jump back into the top 4. And I think that's the bigger issue right now, especially considering that 4-5 series is going to be by far the most difficult in the first round. And it's not going to be close. So
Right.
it'll be very interesting. No one wants to be in the 4-5 game. And frankly, the 3-6 game series will be pretty good too, but that 4-5 game is going to be between two teams that very easily could have had home court advantage. And so for New York, they really have to start stacking up wins a lot sooner rather than later, especially considering they don't have the margin in a lot of the series with teams ahead of them. So I don't know. At this point, I would not at all be surprised for New York to stay at that 5 spot.
Yeah, no doubt. And, with Brianna Stewart, being upgraded a bit on the injury report, I've been waiting to see Emma Mieseman and Brianna Stewart playing alongside one another. But then I also want to see Tosh Cloud in that mix. I also want to see Sab in that mix, Sabrina Ionescu. But, you know, health is what it is, and you can't control those things. But, I mean, in a perfect world for them, they would have everyone fully whole in terms of their roster and being healthy headed into the playoffs. And I don't know what that window looks like for that to occur. But say that does happen, and they do have all their ducks in a row, and moving into the playoffs with a full deck of cards. What do you foresee or prognosticate that to look like for New York if they get everyone back and healthy for that last final push at the end?
Yeah, I mean, if they get healthy, then that's an extremely threatening team. Regardless, they're a threatening team just because of the pieces that they do have.
Yeah,
And so the more people that you can have in the mix, the tougher they are to play.
yeah,
It definitely, as you said, to see Emma Mieseman and Brianna Stewart together is a really exciting prospect. When Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Jonquil Jones have all played together this season, it's been terrific, but we haven't seen that for over a month at this point. So
right.
I think that they're a team that no one wants to have, especially in the early rounds. No one wants to face them. And as I said, especially considering there would be a good likelihood of them being in that 4-5 game. That's a really tough matchup. But I think that this year what we've seen is there is a level of parity beyond what I think anyone could have anticipated with this season, with the point we're at in the league as a whole, where genuinely anyone can beat anyone else on any given night. And we have seen that top to bottom. As I said, the
Mhm.
Sun have beat some of the top teams in the league. They've beat, the Liberty. And then you just have up and comers like the Valkyries coming in with a winning record thus far. And so
Yeah,
I think that they're the same as most other teams where they can be really, really good. I would just worry if they don't get some games to put it all together before the playoffs, finding that rhythm, even with world class players like Brianna Stewart, like Emma Mieseman, like Sabrina Ionescu, like Jonquil Jones.
right.
That chemistry is not automatic. It's not easy. And so they've got to get it sooner rather than later so that they're not trying to put that together in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And just speaking with my coach's hat on for the moment, that would be a little tough, right, for Sandy Brondello. And she's an amazing coach, obviously, with championship acumen from last season and when she was in Phoenix. But thinking about how to get all those pieces together, I mean, you can be super creative, but gosh, I know that's a great point because in the playoffs, and you don't have any margin of error in terms of time or timing or synergy creation at that juncture. So you got to go and just I don't know lock in. I don't even know the advice. I'd be looking around the locker room saying like you just got to go hoop. Like at
Well,
this,
because you're barely going to have practice time in the postseason. Going 1-1-1, if you extend to
yeah,
3 games in the first series, when are you going to get in the gym? So you've got to be ready going into it.
yeah, there'll be probably a lot of film work, a lot of a lot of communication, before any games, obviously. So hats off now. So I'm glad I don't have to do that. But that's going to be quite a challenge if that is the case for New York. But and on the other side of that, with the rise, if you will, of the Las Vegas Aces and what they're looking like right now, to me, is scary hours. And speaking of scary hours, I mean, Asia Wilson is on top, 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 and that's my song of the summer. Like because even when they started the season, Jamie, at 12-13, to rattle off winning 10 of their 11 games, uh, to me is, I mean, that's how you want to be trending in the final chapter of the regular season in W, right?
Yeah. Very much so. They did enough early in the season so that they obviously were having to claw back. As we said, they were kind of on the fringe of the playoff race early in the season, but they turned it around soon enough that right now we're not talking about, oh, are they going to make the playoffs? It's a lot more about what's their seed going to be. And something I've said on this streak of wins for the Aces has been the big difference is Asia Wilson having help from others. But I also want to say, I don't think that I or most people have even given enough credit to the fact that that's not even 100% the separator, because Asia Wilson has also herself leveled up somehow again. I mean, her numbers over this winning streak have been absurd. Like, I can't even put into words what
Obscene.
we're seeing. And maybe that's why people don't give her enough credit. Maybe that's why it's not talked about enough, because it's something that is so unique and so incredible that it's like anything you say doesn't just sound hyperbolic. Like, it's hard to even come up with the words for it. But
Right.
that's what we're seeing. I think that it's been just incredible when you're averaging a double double over the course of the season, but over the winning streak, averaging well over
I mean, goodness.
well over that. When you're doing a little bit of everything for your team, when you're averaging over 2 blocks per game, a steal and a half, when you're responsible for in win shares just over 7 of your team's wins and they've won 24 games. I mean, all of that comes together to say, what do you do with her? And what she does is attracts all the defense. The pictures,
Right.
the still images you get from those games are so just mind blowing, where every single defender on the court is turned towards her because they have to, and they still can't stop her. And then she's leveled up, so it even takes more pressure off of her teammates and more of the defensive focus off of her teammates. So then you have players like Kirsten Bell having the opportunity to find her rhythm, to knock her shots down. You have Jewel Lloyd coming in off the bench and doing so much. You have Dana Evans, who has really found her stride. That's the one who, coming into the season, I said, that is a crazy good get for them. And it took her time to figure
Yeah.
out her role. It took them time to figure out what her role is. But now they have figured it out. And this is the time where you have to have things figured out. So it is all coming together at the perfect point. I think the craziest thing is they're saying that Cheyenne Parker Tyus is working to be back for the postseason. If that's the case, I
Yeah.
mean, that's the big thing that Vegas has been missing for years, is another center to
Mm.
go alongside, to be able to give Asia some relief or to play alongside her and allow her to go to the 4.
Mhm.
If that's the case and Cheyenne can give them even 10 decent
Yeah.
minutes a game, I mean, there's already some chatter of Aces to the ship. Like, there's absolutely a possibility of it. If Cheyenne Parker Tyus gets back in the mix, yeah, that's gonna be a tough team to see.
Oh boy, yeah, she just had her second baby recently. So go mamas, Bomb Squad, we're out here.
Yes.
But that would be absolutely incredible. And just going back to what you were saying about Asia Wilson and the consistency of excellence that she has presented this entire season, even when they started, in the 500s, they were 6-6 and then 12-13, and everyone's like, what's going on with the Aces? What's going on with the Aces? And then they had that meeting, I guess, and she kind of called them to attention and saying, like, you know what, this we didn't come this far to come this far. We got to get it together, and they've gotten it together, and mainly due to the integrity behind her holding them accountable to that level. So when you're looking at Asia Wilson, Becky Hammond said just the other day when they were here in DC, she said, I usually don't go in the locker room and call out numbers off the stat sheet for players, but I don't want Asia to think I don't see her, right? And I thought that was such a powerful statement. So she is recognizing that these 30 plus point and whatever 15 rebound performances,
Mhm.
5 block performances, that's not a common thing to have occur, right? And not only just to have it occur once or twice, but to have a stretch of games, right, where someone has just been clicking like a machine in terms of staying reliable, a player a coach can trust to come out. Like there are no surprises. Like Asia Wilson's going on, I know she's going to do boom, boom, boom. And as coaches, that's all you need, right? You need to have that level of trust. So to hear her say, I'm not going to go in there and say, she has all these grandiose numbers, but at the same time, do we see what we see here in Asia Wilson? And not only her numbers being gaudy in terms of her stats, but the way in which she is presenting that with efficiency. She's the most efficient player in the league with those numbers and those minutes. So I know Nafisa Collier came back and dropped the 30 balls, so I get that. We're going to talk about Minnesota in a second. So I know that MVP race is what it is. And someone asked that question about Asia Wilson and, the MVP discussion. And she said, my question to everyone would be, what is everyone else doing better than Asia Wilson right now? And I was like, whoa, that took me back because I'm like, let's break that down. Let's boil that out and see what we can come up with, because that's a tough argument when you try to figure out who's doing better than Asia Wilson right now in terms of her efficiency, not just, 36 points or 13, 14 rebounds, but everything, like in the way in which she's doing it, her plus minus, the way in which she's leading the team. So for me right now, man, she made a case, a strong one, to say the least, in terms of what Asia Wilson has been able to do. And Melissa Smith, I think she has also given her some relief, much like you were saying Parker could if she were able to get on this roster for the postseason.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's the thing too, is look, I'm a Lynx homer, but you can't not be having very, very legitimate MVP discussions right now, because obviously Asia Wilson is unreal. What she's done is you can have discussions about it, sure, but
Right.
she has to be in those discussions.
Yeah.
And you better put her bestie in there too, because give Alicia Gray some credit for the fact that she's the player in the league that hasn't missed time, that has been in there on both ends of the court. I love that our MVP discussions really center around being a true two-way player, because that has not always been the case just in basketball in general. And so that is obviously crucial this year, especially. But man, yeah, you got to be having some discussions, for sure. There's nothing that's a runaway this year, that's for sure.
Right. And just sticking with the Aces for a brief moment more, with Jewell Loyd being able to kind of sacrifice herself and say, hey, you know what, it's better if I come off the bench. What's your assessment on how that has shuffled the proverbial deck for the Aces?
Oh, I mean, part of what they've struggled with is having that depth on the bench, having the additional production where they've done such a great job of securing and curating these stars, this top level talent, but the supporting cast is where things have been a little bit dicey, and having depth and contributions off the bench is where things have kind of fallen off over the past few seasons. And so to have Jewell Loyd look at it and say, hey, why don't we try having me come off the bench? Like, that's just so smart for so many reasons. Because first of all, Jewell is an extremely mature and experienced player. So there's something to be said for someone who knows the game being able to watch the start of the game and see this is how things are being officiated. This is how they are defending these different types of plays. And so when you have someone that has versatility and has a lot of options, has a deep bag like she does, she's going to say, all right, I know exactly where my spots are going to be, what my opportunities are going to be when I come in. And that's, I think, why we've seen more production, more efficiency out of her since coming off the bench. So doing that for the good of the team just says a lot about leadership, says a lot about trust in the other players saying, well, I'm going to do this. And I know that we're still going to be fine without me in the starting lineup, because I know that I've got teammates that can step in and step up. And They have, I mean, like I said, Kirsten Bell, no notes. Like, very impressed with what she's brought, not just to be a body in the starting lineup, but to contribute after everything she's dealt with
Yeah.
in her career, and the fact that she's never really been able to get a rhythm. Huge, 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 huge for them. And so I love it for Jewel. It's really fun to watch for the Aces, and it takes them up several notches for sure to have that much of a spark coming in off the bench.
Yeah, how about that? I mean, Becky Hammond said prior to the Mystics game the other day here in DC, she said, we just need to make our threes at a higher clip. I think they came into that game shooting 33% from range, but they were pretty much blistering the nets from three. So I know that she was happy about that because of the way teams shrink inside to kind of
Mhm.
pay, obviously, as they should, attention to Asia Wilson and Melissa Smith being able to step off that lane line and hit those short corner shots in Dunker's area and hit those high post shots and those threes. I think that really has opened up and unlocked their offense, right? Because they can space you out. You know what they can do in the paint. But I think now you're seeing more of a complement from the outside on a consistent basis, right? They have more strikers. They have more ability to penetrate into the paint for Chelsea Gray to get that movie running and go ahead and get the goggles on and spray those things out. And I think they were able to knock in a copious amount of threes. And I think that's something moving forward that they're going to look to have more consistency with offensively. And, you were talking about Atlanta. And my goodness, Jamie, the Atlanta Dream, man. I mean, they're sitting right up there in the two spot, and kind of quietly simmering. They're like a crock pot, you know what I'm saying? Like they're just sitting
Mhm.
there all day. And you smell the aromas and it smells great. They're doing great. But it's like they're not ready to open and put it on the plate yet. But boy, they've been cooking up some serious, serious success. And Carl Smesco really has done a masterful job this season at getting the team to have that level of trust in one another in terms of their skill set. And, coming in, he's going to be that 3-point shot coach. Like, we're going to get these arrows fly. We're going to shoot these threes. But then you have BG, you have Bree Jones down inside. And then you have an MVP candidate, as you alluded to, who is playing the best basketball of her career right now, and she's been unlocked. So about this Atlanta Dream team, what is it specifically that they need to continue to do over this last stretch of regular season games to prime themselves for the opening and plating of the crock pot?
I mean, they just have to stay steady, which for them doesn't mean the same contributions from the same players every night. It's almost staying steady in each of them doing what needs to be done, but being ready to step up on any given night. Because I've said what makes them so threatening, what makes them so difficult is you simply cannot scheme in any one way for any one player, any type of play. They just have the ability to do too many things too well. When you have not just a post presence, but multiple dominant interior players that play in different ways. You have Bree Jones, who has just that strength, has that knack to get to the rim. And then you have BG, who has the length, has the finesse to just shoot over essentially anyone that is trying to defend her. It's not just post presence, it's different kinds of post presence. Then you have the perimeter game where you have some really tremendous shooters, but players that you can't just guard on the perimeter, players that you can't just fly out at them and try to prevent the three ball because they will drive past you. They will get to the rim. They will even shoot the mid range a little bit more than you maybe would have anticipated from a Carl Smesco system because he understands you have to kind of meet in the middle with your players. When you have someone like Ryan Howard on your team, you can't say you're not allowed to shoot a mid range. That's the way her game works. But
Right.
more often than not, you're going to be able to get a look at the three or a look at the rim because you have such great spacing, because you have so many players that you have to defend. You don't even have to settle for the mid range very often. And when you do, it's probably wide open and just as good as a layup at times for Ryan Howard. So you're doing all that, and that's a team that also has had a lot of players miss time. Ryan's missed time. Jordan Canada's back out. Hopefully, will be coming back soon. You've had BG gone for a few games and came back. So the fact that they've been able to find that consistency, even with sort of a rotating starting lineup. I mean, it's allowed a lot of their role players to get involved. Tina Powell's been terrific. You've had, I mean, Mike Caldwell. I don't think I anticipated the contribution she would have, or Nia Coffey for that matter. Both of them have been so crucial in specific games, and that's not even to get to Nas Hillman because wow. You talk about most improved, you talked about sixth player of the year. None of these awards are simple at all,
No.
especially this year. But Nas definitely has to be in both of those conversations. And so I think that Coach Smesco has really gotten the best out of their roster, top to bottom. And so when you look at a team that's starting to get people back, that is
Yeah.
mostly fairly healthy,
Yeah.
it's going to matter a lot down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that's so profound. Exactly what you said, and just how Carl Smesco has squeezed every drop of juice out of the orange. I mean, he's just got that way about him. But with Naz Hillman, I think she has been the separating X factor for them
Mhm.
off the bench and sixth player of the year. I know she's in that conversation, as you said, and most improved. But her ability to stretch the floor now, I think that has been something that she has been wanting to do, covering her at Michigan and where she was Big Ten Player of the Year. I mean, she was just a workhorse in the paint, but
Mhm.
that's what she was going to do. Like that. I mean, she did it well. And it's almost like you were saying, like, what she's going to do, and she's still going to do it. Like
Mhm.
with Asia Wilson, it's like, well, exactly where she's going to place herself. And she's got 10 hands in her face, and she's still going to find a way to score. But I think for Nas, that's how it was at Michigan, right? It's like she just worked that paint and got a piece of the body and was just so strong and sturdy inside, and just the ability to get that basketball out of her hands and finish. But now she's added, some stretching of her offense, and now she's out to the 3-point line. But now if you close out hard, she has the speed to get by, So I just think that she has really stacked her basketball skill set up this season. And just kudos to Carl Smesco for being able to unlock that for her, right? And to give her that opportunity to let those shots fly from out there. And I know he wouldn't do it if she weren't making a high percentage of them. That's how coaches work. But she's put the work in. So now he's like, okay, you put the work in to do that, so go ahead and do it. And that just breeds more and more confidence and trust both sides, right? So, is this the right shot to take? If I'm a player, it's like, is this the proper shot for the team? And Carl Smesco was like, you worked on it, so go ahead, let it fly. So that's why there's that trust coming from both sides. But I think with Ryan Howard, like what you said, I mean, she has just been magnificent over the course of her career. So let's just not say it's about this year, but the way he has been able to mix all of those players, I think has just been masterful. And I know there are a lot of arguments for Coach of the Year this season. I mean, Cheryl Reeves sitting at the top, and it's always, a conversation that I'll have because, you're at the top for a reason, right? You've gotten the most out of your team, you're structured, you're disciplined, and you're doing it the right way. But then when you have these new coaches, it's just it's a tough call, like
Mhm.
every other voting category is. But wow, what Carl Smesco has been able to do in Atlanta, I mean, it's tough not to reach that hand out to shake his hand for that because man, it's been chess, not checkers, for the Atlanta Dream, and I think that's going to continue as the postseason creeps up on us here. But let's go with let's talk about Chicago. I know there were a couple of pretty physical games. Chicago and Indiana. Let's talk about those two teams. And I know Indiana is probably more in the thick of the conversation for playoffs and everything than Chicago is at this juncture. But let's start with the Fever. Let's go. Let's go right with the Fever and all of the injuries that they have had, and even the players that they've gotten. Jamie have now also been placed on the injured list. I just it's so frustrating. And I'm sure Steph White is like, man, it's out of our control. But I don't think I've ever seen this level of pillaging to a roster because of injuries. It's just been
No.
crazy. But even with that, they've been in games, right? Albeit physical games. But sometimes they get over the hump. And she was emotional when they did that. Came back from 20 down or whatever, and won
Mhm.
a game with grit and execution. But then you just see this never quit mentality for everyone who is healthy for Indiana. What's your assessment of how they've been able to maintain themselves through this adversity?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievably tough to deal with what they have so consistently, especially here over the past couple weeks. It can throw you to see a teammate injured in a game at any point, let alone an injury that
Yeah,
seems pretty clearly season ending, and having that happen multiple times, including multiple times in a game. So that is really, really difficult. Having that be at one position magnifies that. You have a kind of rotating guard core due to these injuries. And as we said, chemistry doesn't just happen with a snap of the fingers. That takes time, and
yeah,
especially for a team like the Fever, where you don't just have one thing that you do. You don't just have one player that you focus on. You have Kelsey Mitchell, who does a lot of things really well. You have these versatile players like Aaliyah Boston, like Natasha Howard, that everyone does a lot of different things. But in order for people to perform at their full potential, your
right,
teammates really need to know what you're looking for, where you're looking for the ball, when you're looking for the ball. And you see these kind of miscues, these little miscommunications
right,
pretty often just because they're still figuring that out. And every time someone seems like they're getting into a rhythm, there's another injury. And so it's hard to square this current version of the Fever with the team that we have seen at points, most notably just prior to this stretch where they've lost 6 of 8. They had won 5 in a row. And
right.
that included Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Seattle. So they were going up against the teams that are competing
Yeah,
for the top 4 seeds
right,
and winning. And now they've lost to, you know, Minnesota a couple times.
yeah,
Understandable, especially with feedback. They've
right,
had to come back against Connecticut. They've had to, you know, they won against Chicago. That's big for them to be able to get a big win in this tough stretch, but they haven't been able to build consistency, and that's really not anyone's fault. That's just the situation they're in. So, especially considering they have still a 3-game road stretch after this upcoming game against Seattle, they have to go on the road to LA, Golden State, and Phoenix. That's going to be a tough one for sure. They're playing against other teams that are also fighting for playoff spots.
right.
There still really hasn't been an update on Caitlin Clark's status. I know that she went in and was doing some workouts with the team for the first time
Right.
over the weekend. And so that's at least an indication that they're looking at getting her back into it. There had been speculation that maybe they would just keep her shut down. And at this point, I don't think she would go for that, frankly, just knowing the kind of competitor she is, unless there truly wasn't a way for her to safely return to play the season. I
Right.
think she will want to be in there. I think she will want to be part of trying to make the playoff push, and knowing that, hey, what we can do means that we can compete with anyone in the postseason. We just have to get there. But just the cohesion is not quite there, and frankly probably not going to be there even when she comes back. They can get to be really solid, but they're not going to be at their best because of the players that they're missing. It just,
Yeah.
we won't see the best version of them that we have seen this year, but we can still see a very good team.
Right. Right. And I agree with that. I concur because, it's tough because we were thinking it was, the soft tissue injuries for Caitlin Clark on her right leg and then on her left leg. But now, last week there was a report of a bone bruise in her ankle. which we didn't. We don't need to know everything. I get it. I'm not like complaining about that, but I know a bone bruise takes a while longer than a soft tissue injury, which also takes a while to heal. But a bone bruise, like I wouldn't be upset if she were to be shut down just because of health and big picture for her career. Like you don't want to do anything to damage that either, right? And I know, like you just said it right about how competitive Caitlin Clark is. I know that's the last thing that she wants to hear. But man, it's just you just don't want anything else to go wrong if she tries to come back too soon. And again, I
Mhm.
don't know the timeline. You said maybe she was working out this weekend, and there's been no announcement on that. But I would just say, better safe than sorry. And I know that's tough for a competitive, fiery, passionate player who is a pro, right? They want to play, and I don't care if it's little league baseball. Like those kids, it's hard to shut those babies down. So I know that it's tough for Caitlin Clark not to be out there with her team, and I know that she had that shirt on that had Kelsey Mitchell for MVP. So I mean, she's all in it for the team. She understands, and she knows that her teammates have picked it up and try to carry everything, right? And
Mhm.
for the team because of all the injuries, excuse me. But now with Sophie Cunningham being out as well, it's just everything has just been kind of getting a little hairy over there in terms of the injury bug. But I wouldn't be upset if Clark was shut down for the season. But I mean, I hope she comes back, and I want her to be healthy. But I just don't want that to be the start of something that could be worse later on.
Not not at any cost. Like
That
you
part.
you hope that she has the ability to come back and be healthy and play, but it's not I want to see her play no matter what.
That's exactly where I am with it. You said it better than me. That's exactly exactly my sentiment. I definitely want to see her out there, and healthy, out there and healthy. That's what I want to see. Um, but let's go with the Chicago Sky. I
Mhm.
know, there are a couple situations that happened for Chicago in terms of coach being ejected, but a lot of physical play out there. And I think let's kind of start the conversation about the Sky with how physical the games have been. And I mean, do you think there's a difference this year in the physicality in the WNBA, or is it just, hey, it's just physical? Like that's just how it's been from the beginning.
You know, it's hard to say. I think that you have players that are stronger and you also have a recognition of the importance of interior play, especially for a team like the Sky, where everything works inside out. Like if their post players aren't going, they have nothing going because they have guards that can do a lot, but it's predicated on having production inside, getting offensive rebounds. And so teams will kind of sell out to try and prevent those interior players from getting going. And
Right.
what we saw, especially in the game you mentioned where Coach Tyler Marsh was ejected, he was upset over what he perceived to be a missed call, but you don't even have to phrase it that way. I can say he was upset over a missed call, period, because in the post game, it was acknowledged that it should have been a foul. The officials acknowledged upon review that it should have been a foul.
Right.
And so I understand from a coach's perspective that this has been a tough season for this guy. When
Right.
you lose Sloot almost immediately, that changes the entire complexion of your team. When you knew you were going to go some time without Camila Cardoso, you were ready to weather that storm, but it was tough. When you lose Angel Reese for a significant period, you're really your cards are getting stacked against you. And this was not a roster that was going to be a world beater one way or the other. There
Right.
was still going to be some issues, but they had the potential to be more competitive than they have been. And through a series of difficult breaks as far as injuries go, and just having to adjust with a new coach, a lot of new players, they've struggled. And I don't think that Coach Marsh would say their struggles are predominantly due to officiating.
Right.
That doesn't mean that doesn't exacerbate the issues. And especially when we get into some of this physicality and the way that teams play, it gets to be not just wins and losses, but player health. And so the play that really set him off had someone wrapped pretty much all the way around Elizabeth Williams. I don't think it was intentional. She got the ball, ripped it, and ended up with a player kind of on her back. And so there's times where just the way that you move, the way that tie-ups go, you end up in really precarious situations. But that's when those fouls need to be called to make people think twice about doing that, or at the very least to stop the play and not have them continue playing when they're tied up that way. And so to me, the thing that sets me off the most as a fan, as a broadcaster, is when those situations happen that put people in danger.
Right.
And so I frankly 100% understand. Like, he really busted it out on the court. Stop short, but got right up there. And frankly, like, I can feel that if it's been building all season, because it has, because we've seen this time and time again.
Yeah.
I get it. I do get it. And at a certain point, when he said sending film hasn't worked, because they've been doing that all season,
Right.
you feel like I have to do anything to be heard to protect my players. And I think that shows why the players like him. I think they play really hard. I think it seems like the team has a great relationship with Coach Marsh and with his staff.
Right.
But it's just a really tough situation to be in, specifically to be a team that is so reliant on your post. And so, I mean, I could give you a laundry list of issues I had with officiating in the W. There's a lot that needs to be worked on. I don't think it's anything that specifically targets the Sky, but the way that they play puts them in more danger of facing that more consistently.
Yeah, it was super physical, and I saw a comment that said, the crash out was valid. Like he definitely crash out at that point to, like you said, protect the team and protect the players. But at the same time, to hear at the end of the game that, that should have been a call, God, it's like nothing worse. I just saying as a coach, because you're like in that moment and you know that could sway the result of the game, that could, injure a player. Like there's so many things that could go wrong because that was missed. So, like you said, I think there is some kind of work that needs to be done for consistency, and that's not to shade. I wouldn't ever want to be an official. I just want to put that out there. I'm not like saying that I could do it better or anything like that. But to hear that said after the fact, like, we missed that one. That's
And
frustrating.
I will point out, just to use some numbers to drive this point home. Right now, the Sky have the second most field goals attempted in the restricted area in the entire league. Their opponents have the lowest foul rate in the league. They have the fewest fouls per game called in their favor and the lowest foul rate of defenses. So those two things do not square.
No, they don't. Oh my goodness, Jamie, good numbers to pull right there from the herwhostats.com website. But that's crazy. Like I didn't know that. I was not aware of that. But I do know, listen, I coached for a long time, and there was a situation where my kid was down on the ground trying to get the ball, and a kid came behind her and horse collared her, right? It was right in front of me, right? I'm right on the sideline. It's right there at the top of the key, right in front of me. And the kid that happened to was our most volatile kid. Like she was our energy giver kid. And she kind of like, wow, like swung, missed, didn't hit anybody or anything like that. But I knew that she was a volatile kid, right? I'm trying to save the other player from my kid because like, I'm trying to help you out. So I go out, right? And then my kid was called for the tech, and that kid had a common foul. and because I went out there to kind of get my kid to the bench and like get away, like, and it was just like I totally reacted as a mom, like,
Mhm.
like we're separating this thing. Um, but they said, you're lucky you didn't get a technical for coming on the floor, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm trying to save the other kid, but I don't understand. Like my kid had the ball, and the kid horse collared her, right? But then my kid gets the tech for trying to get the kid off of her. I don't know. Anyway, so there's always something, that happens, and it is a bang bang kind of situation. But at the same time, I'm going to protect my kids
Mhm.
as a coach, and I understand that. And I'm not begrudging the officials; they're there to do their job and star in their role, right? But as a coach, I'm going to star in my role too, and I'm going to take up for my kids. I'm like I always said, don't you say anything. I got you, and I
Yes.
had them, right? One of my point guards was at the game the other night, and I was loving up on her, and she knew I had her back always, still to this day. Not just basketball. I'm right here, and they knew that about me, right? So I'm like, do not chatter, do not go up. Even the captains, I'm like, do not go over there. Bring them over here. If you have a question, tell me. I'm gonna talk to them. And all the officials, they know. And one of the officials at the game the other day, and he's like, "Hey, Coach Scott," and I looked up there, and he was like, "Like that's a travel, like whatever." I was like, "Oh, I remember you," because they knew that I was always going to have a conversation. And I was always going to back my kids up, and I was always going to be standing in the gap. So
Mhm.
I don't find anything wrong with that. And you got to stand up for the game. The game is the star. The game is always going to be the star. I wasn't the star as a coach or a player, and none of these players and none of these coaches are the star. The game is the star. And let's keep it that way. So the integrity of the game will always be top tier for me. So in instances like that, protect the game, protect the players, because, it all goes together. The game is the star. So that's just always going to be my conversation for that. Let's go to Phoenix because somebody has a gazillion triple doubles. And it's just absurd with what Alyssa Thomas has been able to do this season. I mean, every season, but specifically this season on a new team, getting to a new area, new coach, and all the things you have to adjust to. But one thing that has remained the same is her consistency of excellence across the board with assists, rebounds, and points. I mean, what's your assessment on what Alyssa Thomas has been able to do? And let's also tie that into Phoenix and their push in the playoff race.
Well, I mean, first of all, when you have more triple doubles in a month than anyone else has in their entire career, that kinda speaks for you, right? But I mean, I think what you said is the consistency for her of just having so much impact on the game.
Mhm.
I was curious when they finally were getting back to full strength,
Yeah.
how things would look, because as we've said in reference to many other teams, you can't just force chemistry. It takes some time. And there's been times where I felt like Alyssa Thomas has been a little bit passive in that she is very much a pass first player and she wants to get everyone involved. And there's times where I feel like they could be better if she called her own number a little bit more. I
Yeah.
think that with the group that they have and with getting some more consistent impact from other players, I mean, especially having Satu back, having Dewana in the mix, coming in off the bench, and then obviously the huge group of rookies they have that generally on any given night they've had a couple players ready to contribute. I think that's taken a little bit of the pressure off of Alyssa Thomas in feeling like she has to make the perfect decision every play, maybe, and where she is willing to call her own number, but she obviously is still going to make great passes. She's going to set her teammates up in a great way. I think that having other people in there hitting the boards, getting some offensive rebounds, getting additional opportunities. On the other end, being willing to jump in and help her defend because she is such a dogged defender. I think that all of that has elevated them a lot. And I haven't seen as many instances like for a long time. There would be a lot of games where I'd be sitting there, and especially within the first 5 minutes, there would be two or three plays where I'm sitting there like, don't pass that. Like, just take the ball to the rim, like establish early. And obviously it's very easy to say from, the viewer's spot, but we just saw that she's one of the most difficult to guard players in the league. And so I think she's been more consistent in finding her spots because there's less of that pressure on her. And in return, that opens up so much for everyone else. And so, again, another team that's starting to really get back into good form, good health going into the postseason. They can do a lot of things really well. The one thing they don't have quite as much of is like a true interior post presence. They have Kalani Brown on the bench, doesn't play huge minutes.
Yeah.
I would like to see them using her a little bit more down the stretch if they can, because there's going to be matchups, especially in a postseason series where they need her, especially defensively. But beyond that, they have a forward and guard core as good as anyone else in the league. And so they are certainly a very threatening team. And if when they get those threes falling, I mean, that's a tough one to beat when they're really shooting well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, with Alyssa Thomas, I mean, I concur with that. I mean, I'd love to see her stay aggressive. And not that she's not aggressive, but even more so in moments where maybe the team needs a surge of momentum. And she definitely could do that. I mean, she's a whirling dervish. She loves to get to that spin move, when she's going. They call her the engine, I call her the A train when she was at Maryland, because once she gets downhill, good luck stopping that, right? She's going to get a piece of the body and spin off you and finish every single time. Every single time. I mean, she's a gold medalist now. I mean, there's just so many things that she is able to do in the game. And I'm sure because she is so good at everything, it's tough to be more aggressive in one area of that. I'm sure. Like just as a competitor, it's kind of like, well, I want to have a good balance. So I'm trying to think, and maybe we can ask her too, but I'm just trying to think, man, if you could do all those things with the exceptional skill set that you can present in all levels of the game and all aspects of the game, I mean, how do you balance that out? Like, how do you say, well, the team needs more rebounding right now, so let me go ahead and size that up. Or, the team needs me to be this facilitator, let me go ahead and do that. But the team needs me to score. Like, how do you just give one aspect more attention? Like, how do you think that feels for her? Like, in terms of don't, like go ahead and shoot that. I know you just said like go ahead and take that shot,
Mhm.
but how does she measure when to go full throttle on one aspect over another?
I mean, I think that a lot of it is getting more familiar with her teammates and the scheme that Phoenix is trying to run, where you have a little bit more of that confidence of what I'm doing is within the flow of what we're looking for. And especially, okay, I'm going to take this early shot. And I know that there's people in position to offensive rebound if I miss, or I know that there's other people that are going to be back defensively, or,
Right.
whatever the case may be in that situation that would maybe
Mhm.
make you second guess. She knows, okay, this is why I'm attacking, or even I'm ready to attack. And I know that all of my teammates are going to be moving to the right spot as a result of that. I'm not going to be throwing them off or driving into someone because that's not anything you ever want to be doing. And so I think it's just, again, we keep talking about this level of familiarity where she knows her teammates, she knows what Coach Tibbetts is asking of her. And that's where we see sustained consistency, that it's just familiarity. It's knowing what's expected of you. It's knowing what you're getting from your teammates. It's knowing, the positions you're going to be in. And so she can say, all right, I know that in this kind of look in front of me, I'm going to be the best option here. Or I know in this kind of situation, I'm really looking for Satu because she has a really great matchup, as opposed to, all right, I'm seeing the floor in front of me. I'm trying to figure out where my teammates are. I'm trying to figure out who's in each spot and trying to remember where they want the ball, how they want the ball. All of
Right.
that just becomes second nature.
Yeah. No, I agree with that too. And I think, when Kobe played, late great Kobe just celebrated his 47th heavenly birthday yesterday. But he would kind of let the game be in this flow state, and then in the fourth quarter, he's like, "Listen, it's winning time." Same for Michael Jordan. Same for these players who know, like, I trust my teammates, I trust my team, but I know I'm the first one in the gym and the last one to leave. So when it comes down to it, when it's winning time, in that fourth quarter, the last 5 minutes of the game in a 3-point game, listen, I'm shooting that thing. I'm letting it go. And I think that's maybe uh, you know, how she thinks. And I don't know. Again, I'm gonna have to check in with her on that. But is it a possibility that she's kind of in that flow state in a team oriented fashion. And then when it comes time to go for the kill, she's the one to do it. Like, because of all the great things that she can do. And not only that, I mean, she can collapse the defense because everyone's going to be trying to stop her. So now she can facilitate. So is it in that fourth quarter, that little 5 minutes where she can go Mamba esque on people and then go ahead and just take the game by the reins and go ahead and do her thing?
Yeah, I mean that definitely is an ability she always has and something we have seen pretty consistently. There's not very many times where down the stretch you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that she passed that." Like she will take the shot that needs to be taken. I also think we've seen a little bit more often where she'll do the same thing to start the game and just establish right off the bat. That's what I had kind of wanted to see and have started to see more consistently is coming out and saying, "Guess what? Whoever you put on me, they can't guard this aspect of my game." Get a couple of really good looks to start out, and then you can start kind of distributing, but ensuring that she gets involved right away and that you can't allow anyone to forget about her or, not really key in on her. She needs to stay really the central focus of the defense because she is such a capable scorer and such a capable passer. If the focus is on her, she will find her teammates. And so getting her established early, I think, has been the big separator and doing the things she does late,
Yeah.
early in the game as well, so that you have that big push to start, that big push to finish. And then in the middle, you can get these different kind of looks, get everyone involved.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, as a coach, I said start strong, finish stronger, and that
Hmm.
kind of goes into that. So I like that a lot. And Phoenix, definitely keeping an eye on them as they're one of the horses in the race right now in the playoff push. So that's gonna be fun to see unfold. And another team, and you kind of alluded to it when we first started, and we're gonna end with the Seattle Washington matchup that was quite a tennis match, if you will. Oh my gosh. I mean, from beginning to end, I mean, the end was theatrical to say the least, with so many different aspects of that word, theatrical at the end of it. But it was just like a back and forth, just grind it out game that neither team was backing down, and it was a beautiful game of basketball. I will say at the end, in particular, in terms of strategy and execution. I mean, both teams came out and took exactly what was on the whiteboard and implemented it real time with their physical skill and mental skill with the focus to execute it. But what's your take on Seattle? And I mean, Neka Gumake, I mean, what in the what? I mean, she was just mesmerizing to sit and watch operate in her gifts. I mean, she was amazing in that game.
I mean, obviously a huge game winner that was defended as well as you could possibly defend it. Took a very difficult shot that rolls all the way around before dropping.
Yeah,
Incredible in by the rim, but her consistency, especially recently from distance, has opened up even more opportunity for her inside.
yeah,
6 of 7 from the three
nuts.
is crazy for anyone, let alone when you do the kind of things that she does inside. I thought that she was obviously tremendously efficient. 30 points on 15 field goals is crazy. Like that's
Oh,
attempt.
yeah,
15 field goal attempts. That
right.
is wild. And I mean, only 2 free throws. It's just that she was so efficient from 3 and then sprinkled in some of those 2 pointers. So, I mean, that's crazy. Played nearly 32 minutes without a foul. And that's certainly not for avoiding tough defensive spots. So, I thought that was obviously tremendous. She has elevated her game in a big way. And then you have to talk about Dominique Malonga coming in off the bench. And what I thought was so interesting is most field goal attempts on the team had
Yeah.
17 points on 17 field goal attempts. So really pretty fairly efficient there. And then yet another double double with 10 rebounds, 5 offensive, 5 defensive. I said maybe a week or two ago that it was a shame that Seattle was struggling in the way that they were because it overshadowed how far Dom has come and the things she's been doing. And now to have some of these really big wins and to see them starting to put some things back together, starting to really, I think, have their heads on straight for a big playoff push.
Mhm.
That has so much to do with Dominique Malonga's contributions off the bench.
Mhm.
So Ben, I mean, incredible to watch. Certainly gives a lot of credit to the way that she was integrated into the team, the way that they slowly worked her in, didn't force it right off the bat. And now she just seems comfortable. She knows what her role is. She knows that she can do these things. She knows that she is this player and they need her. So certainly really, really fun to watch there, especially in a game where Ezzy Magnagor struggled a little bit, primarily with foul trouble.
Yeah.
It was great to see her get going early, made all 3 of her field goal attempts, and a couple of them were, basically to start the game, and then just couldn't get a rhythm after that. We've seen that pretty consistently this year, which is tough,
Right.
but at least you have that length coming in off the bench with
Yeah.
Malonga, where you have a huge, huge game for Neko Glumake. You have 3 other starters that have 10 points each, and then 17 points off the bench is a heck of a boost.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. I mean, I was watching Malunga warm up prior to the game, and I had some video clips. I may post it. I haven't posted it yet, but I'm mesmerized by the preparation of players. And the same thing with Asia Wilson when she was warming up. I was just watching her footwork, and not necessarily the release of the wrist. I'm watching the feet. Right. I think
Mhm.
maybe all coaches do that. I don't know. I'm like, I always say good feet because it's like
Yep.
that's the basis and the foundation of how you move. I love the poetry of the motion of how players get to their shots, not necessarily the shot, which is also pretty, but I like to see the foundation of it. Watching her work, Jamie, it was so beautiful to watch because understanding she's 19 years old, right? She's a babe, she's a pup. But to watch her go out there and put that work in prior to the game and to watch the fluidity of her footwork to me was such a thing of beauty. And to know that the upside is so big, I was just in awe of how she was preparing and getting herself ready for the performance that she put on in GC. But I mean, for me, I don't like to compare NBA and WNBA players skill set wise, but sometimes it is a great snapshot. But I really think that she has the potential to be a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo, like just with her long arms. I mean, her arms. I'm not even joking, and I have pretty long arms. Like my arms are pretty long. Her arms go for miles. Do you understand? And just the ease, like when she was attacking the cup, just the ease of her ability to score inside to me was so super impressive. And to see her warming up and then taking that same move and applying it in the game, right? And I'm like, she worked on that before the game. You know what I mean? So she's
Mhm.
had reps on reps on reps, and I think that is a huge piece as well. And then, you have to look at the straw that stirs the drink for Seattle and Skylar Diggins and her ability to have a double double. She had 10 assists in the game to go along with 10 points, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the
Mhm.
final box that I saw.
11 assists, 10 points, yeah.
Uh, Hey, okay, so I almost had it. But okay, 10 points and 11 assists. So, I mean, when you have these players you can drop dimes to, I know there was a couple of two-player action situations with Sky and with Malunga where she set her up. And I was like, oh, I think I said like a vet to a rookie right there, but she set the table for her. And I think like what you said, they've been able to really get her amplified in terms of getting those in-game reps, but then to set her up in actions where it's just easy success for her, right?
Mhm.
That's going to continue to build the confidence in a player like Malunga to have a vet like Sky Diggins to set her up the way that she was, right? And obviously she set up. NECA, and NECA set her up a couple times and hit her with the reverse pick and roll, like big to small. So I just think they have good spacing, and I think that is something that Noel Quinn was talking about, and better offensive decision making. But now to add Brittany Sykes to the mix, who made a dagger of a triple
Mhm.
down the stretch. We were talking about the theatrical ending, but wow, to add her to the mix defensively, she had some big blocks out there too. But what do you see from Brittany Sykes and the addition to the roster there in Seattle moving forward?
That is one of the most specific things I noticed from this game was Brittany Sykes, and there was a play that really stood out to me that wasn't anything in the stat sheet. At the very beginning of the third quarter, there was a play on the Mystics end of the court, and as the shot came off, it was a miss. The rebound went, and Sonia Citron and kind of backed in to Brittany Sykes and just fell over. And it was a break for Seattle. Sykes stops, physically picks her up, and then they go. And so it ended up being a really quick three on the other end for Seattle. So neither of them even made it back to the play. But to me, that was like the whole encapsulation of sort of Brittany Sykes' role, not in any one organization, but
Right.
in the league, where we have these incredible vets that do that for the young players day in and day out, whether that be on their team or anyone else. We see Tina Charles sitting there after a game and basically coaching whoever she played against on, hey, this is what I did to you. This is how you can try and stop it. You probably still won't, but like eventually maybe you could, or maybe you could try it yourself. And you see that from, I mean, Steph Dolson has been such a great leader, especially you can tell in the huddle and presumably in the locker room
Yeah.
for Washington. And then Brittany Sykes has gone, and she is a really big pickup for Seattle because she has the ability to score in a lot of different ways. She's been shooting the ball pretty dang well from outside, especially over the last couple games. And so that certainly gives them a little bit of a boost there. It is always going to be really tenacious defensively. But to me, it just shows, okay, this isn't about what team you're on. This isn't about your uniform. She's a great leader. She's going to both literally and metaphorically pick people up. And I think that that's a lot of what we're seeing in Seattle, where they're starting to find their rhythm. And a lot of that goes to Brittany Sykes and her impact.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful thing. And I was listening to the post game presser for the Washington Mystics, and Sonia Citron said, Brittany Sykes was my vet, And I don't even know if they asked about that particular play that you said, but I missed that because I was probably looking at the action and
Mhm.
didn't see, behind the play. But I mean, that is what it is all about in the league, having that sisterhood. But to hear Sonia Citron after the game say, that was my vet, because I think the question was, how was it playing against someone you had some familiarity with in terms of knowing your personnel and knowing tendencies and things like that, and for Brittany Sykes to also know the tendencies of Citron, and she said, that's my vet. I love playing against her, whether it be in practice or now on another team in the game. So I think there's just a high level of respect and regard between one another. And man, I'm gonna go back and look at that and look for that, because that is at the end of the day what it is all about. But Seattle, making that strong push, and it was a big win. And that shot that Mecca hit at the very end of it, Suge Sutton prior to that hitting a triple, and then that was right after the Sykes triple. It was just
Yeah.
like I had to sit down after that game, like to like recalibrate, like what just happened. Like it was such a whirlwind of activity, but definitely dramatic closing for Seattle to get that dub on the road. But for me, for Washington, just having some familiarity with them. I mean, this was the shirt they gave out at the game,
Mhm.
Kitron, with Kiki Iriafin, obviously, and Sony Citron doing massive things as rookies in the league. We know Paige Becker's just got a 40 ball, a 44-point game, most recently. So these rookies, man, they're ready made. We were talking about Dominique Malunga. These rookies are just absolutely spectacular in terms of their pro readiness on the court. But the dynamic duo, I'm telling you what, just to have a front row seat, like at practices too, and to be able to watch how they work. And I know you discussed the upside and the 3 first-round picks that Washington has for next season. The upside is amazing, but what have you seen, especially from this game against Seattle? What did you see from Citron and Iriafen on the court that stood out to you?
I mean, I've seen a lot of things that don't necessarily surprise me. I'll tell you that much. I had a front row seat to seeing Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen in the last two March Madness postseason events in the NCAA this past season and the season before with Iowa State. And Kiki obviously had herself a little bit of a game when I covered her back in 2024, and then in 2025 didn't play Iowa State, but I saw them play live, and so you just saw the motor, the effort that they put in, and obviously so cerebral with the game, like just demonstrated such a tremendous understanding of what they were doing. Where again, it's like you kind of put on a little bit of the coach's hat, a little bit of the analyst hat, and it's things that most people are going to ignore, but always being or not realize how to recognize, always being in the right spot, and not just being in the right spot, but being the one who's telling their teammates where they're supposed to go if they're confused. It's that level of leadership and that level of accountability. And that's translated beautifully to the pro game. They communicate, they work. The moment's never too big for them. It's kind of that thing of you don't know what you don't know. You don't know like that you're supposed to be intimidated or scared. Like when Kiki's driving to the hole to tie the game up again late, like that's impressive. And so I think that just seeing them do that consistently, it was one of those where, okay, well, they're starting off strong, but can they maintain it when other teams see them, when other teams get that film to scout them? And even now, without Brittany Sykes, who had been to start the season their primary scorer, they're having to step up even more and they're ready to step up even more. So, long term for their development, it can't even be a positive. It may be a little bit of a struggle to adjust this season, but it's going to have them even more prepared for the fact that they are going to be really the center of this team for a while. And that's to not even mention Shakira Austin having an unreal game, had 30 points, and just went off against a tough team to be defended by in the post. Like, and tough is probably underselling it, but to get 30 points on 10 of 15 shooting, you go 10 of 10 from the free throw line. To have her in there, also had 4 blocks. Like, another fairly young player that we're only scratching the surface of what she's capable of due to the injury she's dealt with. Those 3 really have gotten to know each other. They have a tremendous connection to have developed over less than a season of play as a group, and their games complement each other. So it really bodes so well for them going forward.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Shakira Austin was absolutely incredible, and you said it, her effectiveness and efficiency. But those 4 blocks, it's always going to be about the blocks for me. I don't care. They were some massive ones in that group of 4 blocks that she displayed. But I mean, she was just on it, and to be in a back-to-back game. I mean, she had 18 points the night before or the day before on Saturday in 24 minutes of play, and for her to come out there on a back-to-back and do that a 30 and 10 and 4 game. Like, come on. So I think, like you said, the upside is amazing. I mean, she's the longest tenured Washington Mystics player on the roster right now. I think it's just going to be fun. And Alicia Clark got to start over the weekend against the Aces, her former team, and then obviously against Seattle, her former team twice. She started in Seattle with her career. So I'm sure that was quite something for AC, but she's been another invaluable piece in terms of her experience and leadership. So yeah, it was a great game. I'm still honestly recovering from it. It was just like chaotic, and then I had dropped my son off, at the airport right before. So yesterday was just like it was like a backpack of like all kinds of things for me yesterday. But it's all love, and it was a great game. I think for the fans, I know they were all into it. It was loud in there, so it was really fun. And I know the attendance across the league, Jamie, has been just at an all-time high, and we're going to keep that train moving as well. Is there anything that you want to catch the fans out there up with? What you're working on? What's coming up next for you before we here?
Lord. I mean, frankly, you're going to hear probably less of me because much as you dropped your son off to head to school, I'm also back in school. So first day of the semester, I'm doing my master's. I'll be back at Iowa State doing my master's in journalism. I'm also teaching undergrads. So be a little bit of everything. So I'll still be here. Maybe a little bit less on social media. Hopefully, I'll have some of those responsibilities, but I'll still be around plenty. You can still find me everywhere at J Styes. But yeah, back at school, so gotta get it going up here.
I love it. I love it. That's why that's why we have the iced coffee, man. We get get you some. But no, that's awesome. There you go. No, I'm super proud of you, and I hope I get the Iowa State game again so I can see you in the building. And I know your mom is assistant coach for Iowa State, so I know
Hmm.
she's getting ready to get super busy too with the squad. She's working out. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're starting school, and the WNBA is heating up for the playoffs. But hopefully we'll see you sooner than later, whether on here or in the arena somewhere.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Jamie. We appreciate it always. And this is the 75th edition of the 75th episode, not edition, but episode of the Her Who Stats podcast. And thanks to our wonderful producer, B Mac, for letting us know that, because, wow, it was just 50 like yesterday. And then now we're right at 75, like work time there. But yeah, we have a lot more to discuss moving forward with the WNBA and the playoffs that we are sitting right on the doorstep on, knocking on that door really hard. So we're going to bring it all to you right here on the Her Who Stats podcast. For Jamie Steyer Johnson, I'm Christy Winters Scott, and we will see you all next time. Kitchen on